What's up, America? How y'all doing today? It's Jonathan Bodine. Today, I'm gonna go a little off my character. I'm gonna do something a little different. Today, I'm gonna tell a story about a haunting that I lived through when I was younger. So, buckle up, check it out. It's pretty crazy. This is one of the craziest things that has ever happened to me. If you have any questions about haunting, if I ever had any questions about haunting, this definitely cleared it up for me. But my whole life, I have been like a beacon for demonic activity ever since I was a child. And I'm going to tell more stories about these kind of things as I go along, especially here with it being October and it being, Halloween month, you know what I'm saying? So definitely gonna be telling a little more about the scary side of the aisle. But stick around, check it out. This is the story. Okay, so it started out, I was younger. I was probably around, I think I was around 22 years old, and I had just moved out. Me and my first wife had just moved out of an apartment. We didn't want to live in the apartment life anymore. And my first daughter was around a year old, close to 2 years old, when we decided we were going to go rent this mobile home to get out of the apartment life, like I said. Now, it had a porch that ran all the way across, just like you see here on this one. And now this one was a little different. This isn't the actual photo, but this mobile home that we rented had two front doors, okay? Now, the porch was like this, but it had two front doors, and it had one going into the kitchen and one going into the living room. Now, when we first got to the mobile home, we were just there to look to see if we would rent it. And now went around looking for houses to rent and other mobile homes, and at that time, we were young. We had a young daughter, and so we didn't have a whole lot of money, So, so it was, we were just trying to get whatever we could get, And so the mobile home, it wasn't as nice as this one, This thing was. It was old. It had the old panel walls, all that stuff, and so. But anyway, but it was close to the lake. You overlooking the lake, and it was in the woods, off in the woods, and away from everybody. So it had its perks, but it was old, and it was creepy. So we go in, we first open the door to go in. And when we opened the door, the first thing I felt was this heavy feeling. It was a heavy feeling, and it was just, I didn't like it, I was like, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think I want to stay here. And my wife at the time was like, no, look, we've looked everywhere. This is something we can afford, and it's got this nice porch on it, and it's out here, in the privacy, and it's overlooking the lake. So let's give it a chance. Let's just give it a chance. If we don't like it, we'll move out. So I was like, okay. Against my better judgment, I was like, okay, you know what? We'll give it a shot. But I'm going to tell you, I should have knew right then this was going to be trouble. Okay, so now here we are. We're right right where I said we were. We were at this mobile home. We were checking it out, and like I said, it had its perks. It had its perks, but it was creepy. It was very, very creepy. And like I said, when I walked in that door, I just knew. This is not going to be a good idea. But against my better judgment, we decided we were going to rent this place. Okay, now on the day that we started moving in to the mobile home, we're moving our stuff in. We had just got there, and we're coming across the porch, and there's this giant spider. I've never in my life saw a spider as big as this spider. This spider was huge. So it's dangling down off this porch. And I mean, it was almost the size of a human hand. And so the only thing I had was a bottle of wasp spray. So I get this wasp spray, and I just start spraying it down. I'm spraying this spider that's hanging. It's just hanging there in midair, and it's like just fighting this wasp spray, and finally it just goes limp. So the spider's limp, and I'm terrified of spiders. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not touching this thing, until it's limp. And so when it went limp, I was like, okay, thank God. So I go to locate something to hit this thing with. I was going to knock it off and just get rid of it, right? So when I come back, it's gone. The little web's gone. It wasn't on the porch. It didn't drop down on the porch. I don't know where this thing has went. And I just used an entire can of wasp poisoning on this thing, and it went limp, and then it just disappears. I don't know where this thing's at. So I'm terrified. I'm already like, okay, I've already told you this is a bad idea. I do not want to walk. I don't want to move in this place. It's terrifying and it's creepy. But we continue to move in. Okay. Now we go into the house, and there is this hallway. Now this is what it looked like. There was a door right there in the middle of the hallway that come in, and then there was the middle bedroom and the back spare bedroom and the spare bathroom, and there was a laundry room right here. So this is kind of what it looked like, this hallway right here. And then the hallway, led from the kitchen down this hallway. So if you're in the kitchen, you were looking down the hallway. And as we were moving in, I look down this hallway, and I just get this feeling of just uneasiness. This feeling of almost terror. I was scared. I was like, this is not good. I do not like this hallway. I don't like this hallway at all. And I mean, we have to live here, I'm like, why are we moving in here, and of course, my wife at the time, she's like, this is all we can afford. You're just being paranoid. I'm like, I don't know. We're going to put our daughter's bedroom back there. I don't like that, for one. But of course, at that time, she didn't sleep in her bedroom anyway. She slept in the bed with me and my wife at the time until she was 8 years old. So she that didn't matter. But her toys in her room was going to be back there, in this down this scary hall, And so I'm like, okay, all right. And then one of our friends that was helping us move in, she comes in, and she walks in and looks down that hall, and she's like, ooh. She gets this chill. She does this shiver thing. She's like, ooh. I don't like that hallway. And I'm like, I know, right? And she's like, no, the devil is down that hallway. I am not going down that hallway. And not only did she not go down that hallway, she was like, as a matter of fact, this whole place feels scary to me. And she leaves, and I don't think she ever came back to visit us after that. Terrified. She leaves terrified. So that gives you an idea of how just this place was so uneasy. So, I mean, it's like a movie when you're moving into this scary place, and when you're watching and you see how people react to things, and you're like, just don't move in there. Okay, so here we are. We're moving into this place that I know for a fact is definitely haunted, or at least something is wrong. Okay, this place is terrifying. I mean, it just scared one of our friends off. Just gone. She left. She never came back. Not once. She was out. I'm talking about Audi 500 gone. You know what I'm saying? Because this place was creepy. It was creepy as hell. Okay? Bad. So nevertheless, we continued to move in, and at the time we had these two dogs. It was a blonde lab and a chocolate lab, or a black lab. And these dogs were just rambunctious. They were young, they were puppies, and they would literally bark at anything and everything. And I'm going to tell you what makes this so significant later on in the story, because this is something happens that just it's unexplainable. So okay, we've gotten moved into this place, okay, and then just all this the weirdest stuff started happening. I mean, like, we're hearing noises. The air conditioner ran nonstop, and it would never cut off. So it would drive you crazy. So the electric bill would just be sky high. Just weird things. Just all these weird things. Just noises. We would see things like the TV would come on in the middle of the night. The bed would shake in the middle of the night. But one of the worst things that happened was, like, the very first night that we were there, we were giving our daughter a bath, okay? And so she's in the bathtub, we're in the living room, and we've already ran the bath, and she's in there playing, and all of a sudden we hear the water turn on. And so we were like, what are you doing? Why are you turning the water on? You know, we could hear it. And she's like, I didn't do it. She's like a year or two. She's like 2 years old. And she's like, I didn't do it, you know. And we're like, just don't mess with the water. We go back, we turn it off, you know. A little later on, it comes back on again. We're like, Lauren, stop messing with the water. You're gonna burn yourself, because it was the hot water that it was turning on. So turn it off again. So okay, and this went on, okay, for a while. Okay, you know, we didn't live there for a long time, but this happened for a while. We stayed there for a while, and so it got to the point to where this happened so often, the water would come on. It only did it when she was in there, right? So it was like, we'd always constantly like have to go back in there, turn the water off, you know? And she kept saying, I didn't do it. And then we would get on to her. So then, like, one day, my wife at the time, she left the door just cracked, just enough on the bathroom to where she could see inside. And so she was going to catch her. She was wanting to catch her so she could just, you know, when she caught her trying to turn it on, she could, you know, give her a spanking or whatever, you know, spank her hand, you know, whatever, just to get her to stop doing it. But she watched as the knob turned by itself. And we had already been talking. Now, I know that you're thinking, no way that happened. No way that happened. But the thing is, we had already been talking, because these knobs were hard to turn. It was hard for me to turn. It was hard for my wife at the time to turn it. But this 2-year-old could turn it? No. See, we were already suspect about it. So the thing turned by itself, okay? And it's like, okay, no, and it was the hot water, and it would always be just steaming hot when it came out. This place had the hottest freaking water ever, you know. But the house was like in the wintertime was just completely freezing, even though the heat would be running wide open, and even the temperature gauge would say 75 degrees, perfect temperature. But we're in there breathing freaking cold air. And it was just the craziest thing. We had the air conditioning guys come out. They would check it. And they would always be like, it's fine. It's working fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And it would work fine while they were there. But as soon as they would leave, freezing cold. The air conditioner would never turn off. But it would never get. And we just kept making up all these excuses for all these weird things that kept happening. All these noises. The TV coming on at night by itself. The bed shaking. The water turning on while our daughter was in there by itself. It was the only place that I ever lived where I was afraid to take a shower because I was afraid something was watching me. You always felt like you were being watched all the time. It was terrifying. I hated this place. Okay, so by this point, we had already decided, that's it. We have a poltergeist. There was no doubt in my mind that it was a poltergeist or it was something else. Maybe it was a demon or just like I don't know what it was. But either way, there was something going on with this mobile home. It wasn't right. There was too many things that was going wrong. We had something. It just felt like you were being watched all the time, and there was constantly some kind of noise, and like I said, the TV coming on, the bed shaking all the time, the water turning on by itself, just the craziest things happening all the time. Okay, now I feel like I've painted a pretty good picture of this place. This place is haunted. There's no doubt about it. We have figured it out. Like I said, there's so many things that's went on that's just unexplainable things. And then one night we're laying in bed, and this is where it's going to come back to where I was talking about with my dogs that would bark at anything and everything. They barked constantly. Okay, so we're laying in the bed one night. It's around midnight, maybe later. I don't know. Now we hear this thing. I don't know what it was, but it ran. Okay, this porch went the length of the mobile home. Okay, this was a long, single wide mobile home. It was an 80-foot long mobile home. The porch stretched all the way across it. We hear this thing run across the porch. And it only takes about 4 steps. And it's shaking the entire mobile home. It's boom, 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 all the way across it, okay? No sound from the dogs, nothing. We're laying there in the bed, we're like, oh my God, what was that? We're scared. No dogs barking, nothing. And I'm thinking, I've got to go check on these dogs because they bark at everything. They bark at everything. So where are these dogs? Because they're not barking. So I'm scared that this thing has gotten my dogs, okay? So I finally build up the courage and I go outside, okay? I open the door and I look out and I'm like, what in the hell was that? And I'm looking around making sure that whatever that was is not going to come and grab me and eat me, you know? So I got my flashlight, and I'm looking around. I find the dogs. They are underneath the porch. They are shaking like they have just seen the scariest thing they have ever seen in their lives, and they have pissed themselves. They are literally laying curled up together, shaking, laying in their own urine. I mean, terrified. I don't know what that was, but it was not human. It was not normal. There was some kind of demon. I don't know what it was, but it scared me, and it scared the piss, literally scared the piss out of my dogs, okay? Okay, now, moving on from that event. So, I'm at work, okay? And this is like early. This is like when cell phones had just first come out, you know, or not first come out, but it was when they first got big where everybody had them. And it was just, I had just a regular cell phone. I don't even think they had text yet. There was no text yet. So my wife calls me at work. I'm at work. And she's like, have you been home today? And I'm like, no, why? And she's like, well, I just got back from grocery shopping or something. She'd have been grocery shopping or went to one of her friends. I don't know where she is. But she had just got home, and she said that she was going through the house, putting up, you know, whatever, and she noticed at the back door down the hall, the creepy hallway, she had noticed there was a pile of dirt in front of the door there in the back. So she walks back, and then she noticed that there was other little piles of dirt that went all the way back into that far back bedroom where we had our daughter's toys and stuff, you know. And of course she had a bed in there, but like I said, she didn't sleep back there. But she did play back there. She did play back there a lot, and you know, she didn't ever act creeped out about it, you know. So we let her play. But these piles of dirt, there was just these little piles of dirt, she said, that went all the way back into that bedroom. And then when in the bedroom, in the middle of the bedroom, there was a big pile of dirt. And she was like, so you have no idea where these piles of dirt come from? And I'm like, I don't know. Call the maintenance man, you know. And so she calls the maintenance man. He said he hasn't been there. Nobody's been there, okay? But there's these piles of dirt. So she just cleans them up. When she gets done cleaning it up, there's a spot in the carpet. It looked like a bleach spot left in the carpet, which was really weird. And I'm going to come back to this. Okay, so that happened, and like there's multiple other things happen. I mean, we're still hearing all these sounds. We're still seeing things moving from different places, catching glimpses out of the side of our peripheral vision of like people standing in corners, feeling like it get cold in there all of a sudden. A lot of like the sleep apnea that happened a lot. We wake up, we couldn't move, can't breathe, kind of thing. Bed shaking. It was horrible. It was terrible. Like I said, the TV would come on in the middle of the night, and things would just fall and break. Things would move and be in different places. It was just the scariest place ever. And then one morning, well, actually, it was Christmas morning. Christmas morning, we wake up, and Lauren has these welts all over her body. I'm talking from head to toe. Welts. We have no idea what they are. Now, she was taking a medication for a cold or something that she had. And so, we take her to the emergency room. So we're having to go to the emergency room on Christmas morning. So we're at the emergency room, doctors see her, and they're like, we don't know. They had no idea what caused these welts to just come up all over our daughter's body. It was just, she just had these welts all over her, you know, and it was just the craziest thing. And now he said we told the doctor she's been taking some antibiotics, and the doctor said, well, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just a reaction to the antibiotics. I've never seen anybody having a reaction like this to an antibiotic, but that's what we're going to go with. So just stop giving her the antibiotic. So we quit giving her the antibiotic. Now, it did straighten up. They went away, but another weird event, okay? That was just another weird, strange event that happened. Like I said, weird things went on all the time here, okay, at this place. Just crazy things constantly happening, okay? So at this point, my ex-wife and my daughter, they're like, you know, or my ex-wife, she's like, we're not staying here anymore. This is it. They've already been scared enough. Enough had happened by this point that she was like, I'm leaving. I'm out. I'm moving. I'm going to go stay with my mother. And I'm like, see, I told you we should have never moved into this place. But by this point, we had already paid our deposit. We had already paid, you know, rent. We'd already moved all our stuff in here. We were living here. I mean, but it was like one of those scary movies that you watch and you're like, just leave, just leave. So, but I'm like, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay and figure this out, you know, blah, 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 you know. Like I was going to be tough and figure this out, you know. And, but they move out. They're gone. They said, you know what, we're out. Now, and I decide to stay, you know. I'm just gonna be big. I'm gonna be big, and I'm going to stay. Okay, so now I've decided that I'm gonna stay, and at night there, it was just super creepy. I don't know what. I guess I had lost my mind or something, because there is no way that a normal person would stay in this place by themselves. No way. So I stayed there the first night. And the second night, I decided, okay, I'm going to have a buddy stay over. So one of my buddies comes over and he stays the night with me. And we're drinking a few beers, watching TV. And then we decide we're gonna listen to some music. And I've got this huge CD case. It's back, you know, this is the 90s, you know, when everybody had these, you know, the CDs, big CD case. So I've got this big, huge CD case. I've got, you know, 100 CDs. And so we've got them opened up on a coffee table, and we're listening to these CDs. And we've got it turned up. We've got the stereo turned up. But as we're listening to them, I'm hearing what I believe is I hear a little girl crying, and I'm talking like crying, like screaming, like she's scared or she's getting a spanking or a beating or something. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, turn the music off, turn the music off. So my buddy turns the music off. As soon as he turns the music off, I don't hear anything. I'm like, okay, I'm losing my mind. I'm staying here at this place. This place is crazy, and he's laughing at me because he thinks that I've lost my mind. So he turns it. We're like, all right, well, just turn the music back on. So we turn the music back on, and so I start hearing again. I'm like, turn the music off, turn the music off. And he's like, what? What is it? I'm like, you don't hear that? I'm hearing a little girl crying, and I'm freaking out. So I'm thinking it's like some kind of like father intuition that there's something wrong with my daughter, Lauren. So I call, you know, my ex-wife, my wife at the time. I call her and I'm like, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah, everything's fine. Why? I'm like, I keep hearing a little girl screaming, and it sounds like it's coming from that back bedroom down that creepy hallway is exactly where it sounds like it's coming from. And she's like, well, no, everything's fine. I'm like, Lauren's fine. You're looking at it. She's like, yes, I'm looking at her right now. She's in her crib, and she's asleep. She's asleep, and at her mom's house, she had a crib there. That's what she slept in when she was there. She slept in her crib, and she was fine. And I was like, okay, thank God I thought I was having this father intuition. I kept hearing this, blah, blah, blah. It scared the bejesus out of me. But anyway, so she's fine. But I'm like, let's just not listen to music anymore. I need to go to bed because I've got to go to work tomorrow anyway. So we just close it out. Close up shop, done. All right, so the next morning I get up, I go to work, just like always. So I'm gonna work all day, and then when I get home from work, and I already feel like there's something watching me as I'm pulling in the driveway. Okay, I'm like, oh God, I've got to go back to this place again, alone, by myself. There's nobody here. It's already dusk. It's getting late. I'm like, God, I'm gonna have to stay at this place by myself. Scared, basically, because I'm like, this place is definitely haunted. So I go in. First thing I do is I sit down, and I put my feet up on the coffee table, and I realize, wait a minute, where are my CDs? Because I left them on the coffee table. So I'm like, okay, maybe JR took them, my buddy, he took them. Okay, so I call him, I'm like, what's up, man? Did you borrow my CDs? And he was like, no, I ain't got your CDs, bro. And I'm like, okay, well, all right, cool. So I thought, well, I'm gonna call my wife, and then so I call her, and I'm like, have you been to the trailer today? And she's like, nope, not been there. I'm like, well, my CDs are missing. I was just listening to them last night, and they were on the coffee table. I've looked all over the living room. They're not here. So I think, for some reason, I get this feeling. I'm like, I'm going to go look in that back bedroom, because I was hearing that. I know what I heard. I heard it wasn't just my mind playing tricks on me. I heard it. So I go back there, and the CDs are all out of the case, and they are all over that bedroom. They are everywhere. They're scattered all over the place. I'm terrified. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? And so I call my wife back, my wife at the time back. I call her, I'm like, you have not been here, because the CDs that I was listening to last night, after what I heard coming from this room last night, they're all over the room. They're scattered everywhere. So I'm scared. I'm cleaning them up. She's like, no, I've not been there. I'm like, oh my God, this is terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. So I clean them up, and I just get out of that room, and I go sit down to gather my thoughts in the living room. I'm like, I don't know what is going on, but this is some creepy. It's just getting worse. I'm hearing stuff. There's things going on. It's gotten to the point to where it's like, what are you still doing there? If you were watching the movie, if this was a movie, you would be like, leave, just leave, get out of there. If you don't leave now, it's going to get you, and you're going to die. It's going to eat you or possess you. You are already going insane, because I was losing it at this point. Okay, so now later that night, that was the final straw. This was the final straw. I'm in the bed, and I start hearing something walking around in the living room. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. I'm scared. I'm tucked up in the bed. I hear it walk into my room. I'm just closing my eyes. I hear the TV come on. The TV comes on. I'm shaking. I'm scared. The bed starts shaking. I'm in full, like panic mode. I am terrified. I am freaking out. So I jump up. I just jump up out of bed. I grab my wallet. I grab my keys. I throw on some clothes, and I jet out the door, okay? And I'm going out the door, and I'm looking behind me like there's something coming after me, like I feel like there's something fixing to get me and kill me. I get in my car, and I'm like, oh God, please just crank up, just please crank up. So I crank the car up, and I'm still staring at the house. I'm like, oh my God, you know, it's gonna come out. It's gonna come out. It's gonna get me. I fly out of and this is in the middle of the night. This is like at like midnight. I fly out down the driveway, and I leave with nothing. I leave everything, and I go to my parents' house, and they get up in the morning, they're like, what are you doing on our couch? And I'm like, my house is haunted. We have been living in a haunted house for the last 8 months. Now, we stayed there 8 months. It took 8 months before I finally left. My wife at the time and daughter, they left about a week before I did, you know, and I couldn't stay. It was over. It literally took us 6 months before we went and had enough, braved up enough to go get our stuff out of that place. And we just grabbed the essentials. We left whatever we didn't need. We just left it. We grabbed what we needed and we left the rest. Now, about a month after we left, now we'd already found an apartment, and we were living in that apartment. And a month after that, we find out one of our friends had moved in there. He didn't know that we had lived there, but my brother-in-law at the time knew the guy. They were real good friends, and he found out that he had moved into that same mobile home, and he said he stayed there 1 week and left because he said that was the most haunted, scariest, creepiest, craziest places that he had ever been. And this guy is a big old country bumpkin country guy who you wouldn't think would be scared of anything, but it terrified him. He was there 1 week and he jetted, gone, and said he would never, ever go back. All right, so not long after that, we're just sitting around, me and my wife at the time, and our daughter comes up and she's like, do you guys remember that little girl that lived at our old home? And we were like, no, what are you talking about? Wasn't a little girl? And she was like, yeah, I used to play with her. I used to play with this little girl at our old home. And we kind of thought, was there a neighbor kid? I mean, because there was a trail to this other house, you know, through the woods. And we thought maybe there was another little girl, but we never saw another little girl. And it was like, was it the neighbor's girl? And she was like, no. This little girl, she would come in through that back door. And this is a little girl we're talking about, 2 years old, you know, and she's telling us the story. And she's like, she would float in through the back door. She didn't have legs. She said she didn't have legs, and she would just float. She said she would just float, and she said she had blood in her hair. She said everywhere in her hair, and she always had dirt in her hands. That's what she said. She said she always had dirt in her hair, and she had blood in her hair everywhere, and she said that she would play with this dirt. Now, you remember, think back. Remember, the little piles of dirt, little dirt piles. She said she would play with the dirt, and she would leave piles of dirt. And we were like, what? And she was like, yeah, I used to play with her. Now, given that right there was terrifying. Now, I heard the little girl screaming, and now she's telling me that she used to play with some little girl, and that had dirt. So we had the dirt in the floor, We heard the little girl, and now she's telling us about a little ghost girl, obviously, blood in her hair and she floats, no legs. We're freaking out, okay? So we're thinking, oh gosh, she's gonna be traumatized. But according to her, she said she never hurt her, she never did anything to her, just floated around. She said she didn't like her, she said she scared her, but she never did anything to hurt her. So, really weird, freaked us out, okay? That just, I mean, that was the icing on the cake. We were like, thank God we are out of that place. Okay, now I say that is the icing on the cake, but this is the icing on the cake. Okay, so 8 years later, 8 years down the road, I've already gotten a divorce. Actually, it's probably more like 12 years down the road, I think. Something like that. Either way, down the road, we've already gotten a divorce. I've already divorced that my first wife, and I've already married my second wife, okay? And so I tell her this story. I tell her the whole story, right? About this haunted mobile home, the story that I just told you guys. She goes and she tells her father this story. Okay, and he's like, now this is the icing on the cake. He said, I know the people that used to live in the mobile home you're talking about. It was he said, it's up on a hill in the woods overlooking the lake, right? And she's like, yeah, that's it. That's the one with, he said, with the porch that went all the way across, right? And she was like, yeah, that's it. That's the one. And he said, well, I got to tell you something. And this is the craziest thing ever. He's done pale as she said he went white as a ghost when he heard her tell the story. He said that he was working at a rock quarry at that time, or a chert quarry at that time. And the man that lived in that trailer had a wife and a little girl. Okay? And he said he was the meanest man. He was just a bastard. He was always mean, and everybody knew that he was abusing his wife. Everybody knew that he was. He was abusing his wife and probably his daughter, okay? He was a mean bastard, okay? And he didn't show up for work one day. Or actually for a few days, he said. So they sent somebody to check on him. They got there, and he had murdered his wife and his daughter and then killed himself in that mobile home. And that is the icing on the cake. He had murdered his family in that house. Nobody told us when we rented that mobile home that somebody had been murdered in that place. But that is my story of the haunted house that I lived in, and I really lived it, and it was like, just like what you would see in the movies. It's like, get out of there, my goodness, it's haunted, leave. But when you're living it, you don't realize how bad it is. But it's true. It was a true story. I mean, everything I just told you was true. And, and that just goes to show you there was obviously a demonic spirit that had lived in the house. This goes back to, I don't believe in ghosts, so there was a familiar spirit that had gotten into this man, a demon that had possessed this man. That's why he was so mean. and he killed his wife, and this familiar spirit was betraying, it was pretending to be the man, the wife, and this child, and is haunting that trailer. Now, I won't even drive by that trailer anymore. My daughter, she remembers that even till this day, and she's 25 years old now, so she remembers that, and she still talks about the little girl. You know, it's very scary stuff, very scary stuff. But this has already been a super long story, so I'm going to end it here. I'm Jonathan Bodine. This is Hello America. Subscribe to my channel. Leave me some comments. Tell me about something that happened to you. Tell me some Halloween stories. I love you guys. I am out.